basketball is a game. Arkansas basketball is different. It's more than a game.
The 100 years at the University of Arkansas, they come a long way.
Arkansas basketball has a long tradition.
A program that in 100 years has been to 6 Final Fours, has won 26 conference championships, has been to the NCAA tournament so many times we can't even count them, is absolutely remarkable.
Arkansas basketball is what the whole state of Arkansas represents. It's hard work, it's dedication, it's grit and grind.
Arkansas basketball is family. I think it's not only us as players, but I think it's the whole state.
It's a real happening. You are going to be entertained. There is not going to be a boring moment. It's going to be fun. It's going to be loud. And they're going to fill that place.
It's had 2 stretches in its history that it was competing with anyone in the country. That's what Razorback basketball is. It's winning.
The tradition has been built over the years.
Arkansas with its first ever national championship.
There's so much history. Basketball is important at Arkansas.
It is a lifestyle of Arkansans, Razorback fans.
Sometimes it becomes life. It's more than a game. That's about as best I can describe what Arkansas basketball is. It means a lot.
"100 years, a century. However you put it, that's how long the Razorback basketball program has existed. 100 seasons of rich history began in 1923, when Arkansas fielded its first ever basketball team under the leadership of head coach Francis Schmidt. The Hogs played their first ever basketball game on December 20th, 1923, where they would defeat what is now Northeastern State, beginning a winning tradition at Arkansas. Schmidt, alongside Jay Fulbright, helped transform an old car showroom into Arkansas's first playing court, Schmidt's Gymnasium, a venue that history knows as Smitty's Barn. Schmidt earned the namesake. His Razorback squad won the Southwest Conference in just the 3rd season of its existence, a feat they would repeat 5 straight times. Schmidt coached some notable players, and Arkansas's first All-Americans, Tom Pickell, and 2 players who would eventually be successful Razorback coaches themselves, Gene Lambert and Glenn Rose. Coach Schmidt left the program in 1930, making way for Charles Bassett. Bassett led the team to a Southwest Conference championship his first season, but fizzled out during his 4-year tenure. In 1933, former Razorback All-American Glenn Rose was named Arkansas's head coach, the first of 2 stints leading the Razorback program that would span a total of 23 years.
Coach Rose was a very good basketball coach. He won several Southwest Conference championships as a coach here. He developed a lot of good players. You might really say that basketball really didn't start until Ben was the coach.
Rose would be the first coach to take the program to new heights nationally. In his first stint, he led the Hogs for 9 seasons, winning 5 conference titles and leading the Razorbacks to their first ever Final Four in 1941. During Rose's first tenure, the team would also transition from Smitty's Barn to the men's gymnasium, the last home venue they'd have until the construction of Barnhill Arena. Rose stepped away after the 1942 season, and his old teammate and fellow All-American Gene Lambert came home to his alma mater to lead the Razorback program. Lambert would lead the Hogs for 7 seasons, winning 2 Southwest Conference titles and taking the team to its second Final Four in 1945. Presley Askew became the program's 5th head coach in 1949, but departed after 3 seasons, making way for Rose's return in '52. 2 years later, Razorback basketball found a new home a place that would house the Hogs for the next 39 years.
Barnhill Arena, actually I should be saying Barnhill Fieldhouse. It was state of the art in 1959. It was a facility that held 5,000 people. It was a multi-purpose facility. And then around the edge of the court, there was sawdust. We had a little rail about so high. And you could go over that rail and you come up and you knock all of the sawdust off of you and continue to play. Our weight training program, when I was here, involved one barbell sitting over in the corner of the arena and one of these monkey bars, that you climb across. And that was our weight program. It was a different game then.
Though they had a new playing court, the program went through a rough period, making only one NCAA tournament in Rose's 14-year final stretch as head coach.
The basketball program struggled for the most part. There was a couple good teams, but for the most part, it was a program that was struggling, at least on the national scene. That was the era of UCLA and Indiana and Ohio State and all these great teams. And through the 50s and 60s into the 70s, and Arkansas kind of took a back seat to all those teams.
While the program struggled to find its footing during the 60s and 70s, it was an important time in Arkansas basketball history as the integration of the program began. In the 1967-68 season, head coach Duddy Waller recruited the first African-American basketball player to play for the Razorbacks, Thomas A. Johnson. Johnson paved the way for the program's integration. Within the next 5 years, the Razorbacks had their first black all-conference and all-America performers under head coach Lanny Van Eman. Razorback standouts like Almer Lee, Dean Tolson, and Martin Terry.
They came to Arkansas, and they were black, and they were prolific, high-scoring players. And I said, I want to be like that. Martin Terry, he had a big fro, and he scored at will. He still got records to this day in the history books. I think Arkansas was probably one of the first teams that was actually playing integrated teams and players. Players they had back then was the reason I'm here at the University of Arkansas, but they got it started.
There was Martin Terry and Dean Tolson. There were some good players here, but they couldn't quite get over the hump nationally. They couldn't really win the conference championship, but they were pretty good. And that was the spark. And at that time, Arkansas hires this young coach that grew up in Kansas. He'd coached high school in Oklahoma, and he'd done well at Creighton. And Eddie Sutton comes in.
Well, I just came from an institution that didn't have football, and at Creighton we played almost at least one team from most of the major conferences in the country. Well, I don't think the Southwest Conference is that far behind in basketball.
Coach Sutton had been hired by Coach Broyles that spring with the promise that more resources would be put into the basketball program.
When Sutton took the job, our athletic director at the time, Frank Broyles, could be very convincing. But when Sutton took a look at that facility, he said, I'm not sure you can win here. You got to promise me we're going to renovate this arena.
He said 5,000 is not enough to have a competitive program. I said, how about 8,500? He said, then I'll take the job. So I said, I can do that. But he helped me do it.
I think 100 years, but really the true relevancy of it was 1975, 76. The Coach Sutton eras, it's when it really kind of took off.
We've already started on recruiting for next year, so we think things are looking up.
Goes to Moncrief, up the baseline, Sidney, slam dunk!
Those guys back there changed it all, the triplets.
Fortunately for Coach Sutton, he came along at the time that three of the greatest high school basketball players in the state of Arkansas graduated.
Always starts with players, and to me, and I think he got Ron Brewer, Martin Delph, Sidney Moncrief, Jimmy Counce. He got those four guys to come, and they came kind of on a promise.
Tip up by Moncrief, no good, gets his own rebound, goes back up and scores!
When they were being recruited, Barnhill was under construction for the first phase. So what they saw was this not so nice gym. And Sutton convinced them to come, but to get players like Brewer, Moncrief, and Delph out of the same state at the same time, pretty darn amazing.
Those three players, and I'm gonna say that because we were state-grown kids, Conway, Marvin, Sidney, Little Rock, me, Fort Smith. And we were all coming to University of Arkansas to try to make a difference.
We're going to play at Arkansas. We're going to bring the state some recognition, some pride, and we're going to win basketball games. End of story. We didn't think about anything else.
We came in with high expectations because we're from the state of Arkansas, but we didn't let nobody down.
These are three of the best players in the country. And when you get that at the same time, it was two tremendous seasons where they were competing to win a national championship.
The 1976-77 season, Eddie Sutton and the Triplets won their first Southwest Conference championship under the new coach, paving the way for the Hogs' first NCAA tournament berth in 19 years.
We went 26-2, went undefeated in conference. I don't think that we realized, because we was following our coach's lead. He shared with us that he just felt like we weren't quite there. But our record spoke different.
We lost to Wake Forest in the first round of the NCAA because we didn't realize how good we were.
Our expectations were not high enough. We had just broken through.
I think because of the experience we had my junior year, it allowed us to realize we're going to be good my senior year, but also Coach Sutton knew that.
We lost to Wake Forest. We come back for their senior year, my junior year. We're at practice, and Coach Sutton very seldom, if he says, Sidney, which he never did, or Ron, I need to see you in my office, that's not good. So he said, Ron, Sidney, Marvin, I need to see you guys in my office. We go in his office and we sit down. We're just sitting like, why in the heck are we here? And he said, what he said was, Sidney, Ron, Marvin, you guys are really good. You're really good. You're better than most players in the country. I just want you guys to know that. And we're like, where in the heck did that come from Coach Sutton? I've just never done that before. He realized that as a leader, you have to help build these guys' confidence, because what happened last year was just an accident. They could do something special this year, but they need to know they're as good as they are. When he said you're as good as anybody in the country, that gave us that extra push to say, you know what? We are pretty doggone good. Let's start playing like it.
76, 77, they were great, but it was kind of a letdown at the end. But 77, 78 wasn't any letdown.
Against their presses, we want to line up. Ron, you take the ball out of bounds. Jimmy, you and Sidney will play these spots. Chris, you play the 4 spot. Steve, you play the 5 spot as you always do. The biggest thing we got to understand is anytime we go out and play, we don't care who it is, we got to play up to our potential. Now let's go get them.
That team was so good, so the media just kept building, and it kept building, and more people wanted to be around it, and more media was coming, and more fans. If you lost a game, it was like talked about all over the state, and you couldn't get a ticket.
From that time on, for 26 straight seasons, we sold every ticket in a season ticket.
I'm not sure, with the possible exception of Duke's Arena, there's ever been a better home court advantage than what Arkansas had at Barnhill. When we were good, the crowd was right on you. The students were close enough that they could make a lot of noise, and it was an absolute frenzy. And the noise level in there was just almost deafening. I would judge how loud the crowd was by if my ears were still ringing the next morning when I woke up. It was that loud in that arena.
I can almost count on one hand how many games I lost in my history at the University of Arkansas in Barnhill.
The crowds that we had here made Barnhill an almost impossible place for an opponent to win.
Here is Delph. A correction, Brewer drives, scoop. Arkansas has won it over the Texas Longhorns.
Sutton's squad posted a 12-0 record in Barnhill that season, on its way to its second straight Southwest Conference title and NCAA tournament appearance. The Razorbacks got past Weber State in the first round and moved on to play UCLA in the Sweet 16.
They're the number 2 team in the country. They're a year or two away from the John Wooden dynasty. Everybody still thought they were absolutely fabulous.
Back in the day, UCLA dominated college basketball.
They were the gold standard. And we're like, God, we're playing UCLA. Can you believe this? We're going to kick there. In our minds, we're like, we're not intimidated now. The one thing we did not have, no fear.
Never forget what Coach Sutton told us. He said, there won't be any upset tonight, he said, because you guys are better than they are. And we were.
2-on-1. Brewer and Moncrief. Moncrief with the stuff, beautiful.
I don't think they'd ever seen anybody like Brewer, Moncrief, and Delph.
Delp brings it down. The jumper. Delp. Arkansas wins it.
Boom. The Razorbacks. And it was a good game. It was a really good game. And it was just an emotional game. And it was the great California team. And we had our boys, our guys that are from the state of Arkansas for the most part. It was our team, our kids.
That's really the victory that put Arkansas on the national map.
It took us to another level.
Perhaps the most important victory in Arkansas history.
At that point, Brewer, Moncrief, and Delp only had 3 games left to play with each other. Al McGuire was a nationally known TV commentator, so he was at practice the day before. He saw that Brewer, Moncrief, and Delp were all 6'4", and he said, man, those guys are great, they're triplets. And so this nickname, the triplets, that ever since 1978, Brewer, Moncrief, and Delp have had as their label, wasn't actually given to them until they only had 3 games left with each other. And yet here we are, 40 years later, and you say triplets, and you immediately say Brewer, Moncrief, and Delp.
The Hogs beat Cal State Fullerton in the Elite Eight and moved on to the program's 3rd ever Final Four, where they would face Kentucky.
ESPN presents the 1978 Final Four featuring the Arkansas Razorbacks. The Duke Blue Devils.
You had the best 4 teams in the Final Four. And out of those 4 teams, we felt that if we played them 10 times, we beat them 9. That's how confident we were. And it hurt us because there's no way we should have lost that game.
We played them pretty evenly throughout the entire game and made a little run. Needed one more basket to kind of get over the hump. We had just scored. They had to throw the ball in bounds. They ran a little play. Givens got back, they threw the ball to him and traveled about 3 or 4 steps and then scored a layup. And that essentially put the ball game away. Referees just swallowed their whistles on that. I always claim it's because Kentucky's Kentucky and Arkansas is Arkansas. But if you can tell that there's still a little bitterness there, there is.
It hurt. I think about it right now, about how close we were to win the national championship. And I realized close, but not close enough.
That run to the Final Four, that was a tremendous time in the state of Arkansas.
In the battle for 3rd place, some 48 hours later, the Razorbacks were in another hair-raiser.
3rd place game was a big deal back then.
We played Notre Dame. I was in the dressing room before the game and hearing Coach Sutton and Coach Digger Phelps talk about, really, they should get away with the 3rd place game because you're up so high, and when that game's over and you lose, why would you play for the 3rd, 4th place? So I'm sitting there looking at this, I'm like, well, this game don't really mean nothing, but it did to me. They kept it close, and they scored a bucket with about 10 seconds left.
Tied at 69. Jackson, tied up.
Tie game.
69 all, 10 seconds to go, and Arkansas would take the ball out of bounds against Notre Dame.
I was the kind of guy who was raised up playing, I call it sandlot ball. You know how you play this, you go out there and you say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I already had in my mind I was gonna take the last second shot. Well, the guy that was commentating knew it. He said, this is gonna be a solo job, because he saw how I was taking my time coming down the floor.
It's gonna be a solo job by Brewer right there.
And every player who plays basketball work out and train to have what they call go-to moves. Moves that you say, if I need a bucket, which one would I count on? And I had a go-to move. And I gave him 3/4 of my body, turned one way, and I saw him. When I went back the other way, I knew that if I got up in there, I knew there wasn't nothing he could do.
1, there it is. Good. They win it.
They showed the last second shot. They don't see me giving anybody high fives afterwards, because I'm not even the pitcher. I ran straight to the dressing room.
Arkansas gains the 3rd place title, 71-69 over Notre Dame. Arkansas ends its season with a brilliant 32-4 record.
We won that game on a last-second play, and the enormity of going to the Final Four finally hit us. I mean, Arkansas basketball had been hardly anything 4 years ago. It had meant nothing to anybody. One guy had come in and kind of led us to all that, and that was Coach Sutton.
You get on the baseline, Sidney, and you just flash up into the middle, you understand? And you move around, and he'll find the spots. The other guys, you catch the ball, you look inside.
It was his leadership that took us there. Now, make no mistake about it, coaches coach and players play.
Without Brewer, Moncrief, and Delph, who knows if Eddie Sutton would have ever won like he won.
We help to give that state the state of common cause, common ground, something they can all feel proud of.
We started it. It wasn't that the people before us they didn't win.
It opened up the possibility that if I'm an elite player from Arkansas, that I would stay in Arkansas and play. We were the three that said, hey, we're committed to the state, we want to play at Arkansas, and it opened up other people to do the same.
Those three guys, they really were. They were what started this. If those three weren't born, if they weren't born in Arkansas, if they don't end up as Razorbacks, I'm not sure we've been to 6 Final Fours. I don't know if we've won a national championship without those guys. They weren't on the national championship team, but they got Arkansas basketball rolling. Eddie Sutton and those 3 triplets.
Eddie took it a long ways. There's no question about before he got here, it was just another game. But as time evolved, it got better.
He had built this program up and done so many wonderful things for Razorback basketball.
That's the foundation to the house that Nolan built. You know, I don't think Nolan comes here if Coach Sutton's not here. Because I don't think Arkansas would have been a better job than Tulsa, so I don't think he would have come. And I think there was a foundation here, and then what Nolan did was built a really nice house on it, a really nice house.
I am not a politician, so I don't make big promises. But there is one promise that I must make, and I will say to you that we will be there.